A hero with no memory and a mysterious mask covering his face is thrown out into this land of unknown. Reaching to an end of his journey, he discovers a truth that is hard to swallow, something terrifying about his true identity. I'm Bill, and this is my first impressions of 3000th Duel. 3000th Duel is an action-adventure game with really cool combat and very cool boss fights. I have to say that overall, I'm very much enjoying this game. It was released on February 19th, 2020 for the Nintendo Switch. Its publisher and developer is Neo Popcorn. I always kind of like these worlds where it's a two-dimensional game played in a three-dimensional world, and I always find that to be a very comforting aesthetic, and 3000th Duel does a great job at pulling this off. I feel like the design of the characters, the weapons, and the main hero themselves, I think that all of that is really good. The bosses are gigantic and fantastic looking. And I'm a big fan of the overall art design and graphics choices that Neo Popcorn made when making this game. According to the developer, when you're playing 3000th Duel, there is this huge world of connected biomes that there's over 300 different biomes. Now, I'm not really sure what they mean by different biomes. For me, when I think of different biomes, I think, oh, okay, like a tundra or a desert or a forest area. And I find it hard to believe that there's 300 different like scenery types in this game. Maybe there's more than 300 different levels, and that's what they mean, but even that seems kind of crazy to me. I've been playing for, I'm going to say, probably about 4 hours so far, and I'm having a lot of fun, but I've only seen probably 4 or 5 different, what I would call, biomes. Now, in the 4 or 5 different biomes that I've seen a lot of different types of monsters and different platform actions that you run into. Like there's spike traps, and there are these monsters that will charge forward and slam into you no matter what you do. There's giant spiders, there's huge skeletons that take up the entire screen. Then there's these little mages that float around and shoot stuff at you. It's really, really cool, and I think overall the world and the characters are incredibly well done in 3000th Duel, and I'm a fan of it. Now, the developer describes the game as a action, adventure, platformer, role-playing game, and usually when you throw all of these different genres at somebody, it's almost like you're just trying to get something to land, but I feel like they earned it with 3000th Duel. The one thing that I may have had a question on was the role-playing aspect, and that all melted away once I saw the tech tree that you unlock as you level up. As you play the game, you kill monsters. Those monsters give you karma. You can then spend that karma to upgrade your character, and every person is probably, at the very beginning, everybody will probably follow the same path, but as you go through the tech tree, which is very, very large, I anticipate that people will start to differentiate based on the weapon type that they like or the combat style that they like. And you'll end up like, maybe you really, really like swords, or maybe you really, really like spears. And so you'll put your points into the spears or the swords depending on what your preference is. So let's take a second and talk about the 3 different types of attacks that you can have. You have these blade-based attacks, which are quick speed but have a shorter range. These are smaller swords that you use. And then there's larger swords, which are much, much slower to attack with and do a lot more damage and cover a much longer range. Most of the time, in most games, if you were to say, hey, Bill, do you want to be able to attack quickly or have big, powerful hits? Most of the time, my personal preference would be to go for the quick attacks. So, for instance, in games like Soul Calibur, I focused on characters like Kilik, who were super, super quick. And I never really got into the characters who were the big lumbering characters because I always felt like I could just dance around them. And the big lumbering characters always, to me, felt like that they were at a disadvantage. Now, in 3000th Duel, that doesn't feel that way to me. To me, I feel like the blade-based attacks that have that fast attack speed are really, really good. But so are the huge, massive damage attacks from a sword. And then you also have the lance-based attack that have extremely long reach, and it gives you more of a strategic gameplay because you can jump in, attack, and jump out. Now, for me, the lance-based attacks, I'm bad at them. So I've really kind of been focusing on the sword-based attacks with the really, really big damage. I've had a lot of fun with the big swords, and the little swords, I feel like, don't come into their own until later in the game, whereas the big swords are easy to be good with, even if you're bad at the game. In addition to the blade-based attacks, you can also have slots to learn spells. You can equip the spells into their slots, and then you can use buttons to cycle between the different occult spells. That's basically, they're called occults. You can hit a button to cycle between them and then hit your magic button to cast that spell. Maybe you will shoot a fireball out in front of you or shoot poison straight up from above you. It gives you a lot of options, and overall, I think it gives us a lot of different ways to specialize our character, and I like it a lot. In addition, you can also get items. This is where the role-playing part of the game comes in. You have accessories that you can equip, obviously weapons that you can equip. You can also equip items that you can use, like potions that will make you take less poison damage or take less fire damage or quickly heal you or give you back mana really quickly. These kind of things make it feel like you can prepare for a big fight before you go in there. Now, the game is fairly linear, and I say that even though it feels almost like a Metroidvania kind of game in the way that you go around the map, and you might retraverse some areas that you've traversed before. But even though you have that retraversal feel to it, it also at the same times feels like it is a linear style game, because I don't feel like I have like a lot of options when I am going from one place to the next. There's always one way to go, and that's the right way. And don't take this as a criticism of the game, because there are a lot of really good games out there that are linear, and so far 3000th Duel, which is very hard to say, is one of them. The karma that I mentioned earlier kind of works like souls in Dark Souls. You collect this by dealing damage to enemies. Then you have to find a statue to spend these to upgrade your character. There's also almost always a save point right nearby, which is very cool. And then if you die, you lose all of the karma that you've collected. However, if you get back to the same point where you died, you can recoup that karma by attacking it with a few attacks. It will then unlock and it will come to you. If you run right up to it, however, it will do damage to you. So you have to break it before you pick that karma up. It's really interesting, and I like this kind of game. I've never gotten into Dark Souls because the difficulty is really high. I will say that 3000th Duel is also a pretty difficult game to play, but because it's a 2D game instead of a 3D game, I feel like it's a little more forgiving, and mostly because there's less options for you to worry about. As you traverse through the, as I said before, very linear progression through the game, you will unlock shortcuts that you can then use later. So when you're playing the game, be on the lookout for an area where you can get through that will end up taking you back to your save point. And usually you will like take the long way around. And when you get to that long way around, you'll be able to unlock a shortcut that will give you a quick path between the save point and the next boss. which I think is fantastic. It gives you that, more expansive gameplay of a lot of traversal and fighting things and going from place to place. But at the same time, it doesn't make you redo that stuff over and over and over if you're having trouble on a boss. Normally, I would say just let me save whenever I want. And still, I kind of would like that. But this seems like a pretty happy medium, and I'm a fan. Like I said before, this is my initial impressions of the game. This is not my final thoughts. I'm only about 3 to 5 hours into the game. I am really enjoying it. I've been picking it up way more than I expected to, just from looking at the initial press release when the developer sent it to me. I looked at it and I said, all right, maybe I'll check it out. But once I started playing, I really like this game, and I think that you're going to like this too. So if you are interested in this game, it is $15 on the Nintendo Switch. It is available now. And again, it came out on February 19th and is from the publisher and developer Neo Popcorn. If you didn't know, I've got a podcast called Nintendo Switchcraft. You can listen to it wherever podcasts are downloaded. You can also feel free to check out 143 Pixels. Every episode, I choose a friend. That friend chooses a game. And so each episode, we have a different friend and a different game to talk about. Thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, make sure that you hit that like button. Of course, subscribe and click the bell. And I will see you next time.